But is there also a line where all they're doing is asking questions about you and not really divulging anything? Or is there also a line where their line of questioning is like, you're getting a little creepy, bro. I just met you. Hey, welcome to the Dating Detox Show. I am Eric Wooten, and with me is Megan Toma. How you doing today, Megan?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good enough,
Good.
That's all we
Yeah.
need today, right? So
Yes.
I'm ready to jump into this one. Before I do, if you have not already downloaded your Modern Daters Playbook or grabbed Megan's text responses that you need to have if you're going to be in the dating streets, you can check that out in the show notes or description area. Grab that. And today we're going to talk about signs to look for on the first date, right?
Yes.
What should we even
Yes.
be looking for, right? Or should
Um,
we be looking for anything? I don't know. Maybe just go
I
in
think
blind with no goals.
that's how most of us do the dating, I'm afraid. That's how I used to do the dating, at least. And then I had to switch that up. I had to change the game a little bit. And it's way more fun this way and actually a lot easier this way to navigate dating. Okay. So, one of the first things I have down of signs to look for on the first date
Okay.
is that they take a genuine interest in getting to know you. And it's normal to have first date jitters, right? But I hear, especially from women often, I hear he didn't ask me one question. We were out for this entire date and he did not ask me one thing about myself. So we want to look for someone that, they may ask some of the traditional first date getting to know you questions, but do they
Sure.
take a deeper interest and have genuine curiosity about you and getting to know you?
Is there I think that's good, right? I mean, obviously, if you got somebody who all they do is talk about themselves and never ask you a question about yourself, that's probably a
Yeah.
pretty good indicator. But is there also a line where all they're doing is asking questions about you and not really divulging anything? Or is there also a line where their line of questioning is like, we're getting a little creepy, bro. I just met you. Like, I don't need to give you that kind of information. Um,
Mm,
how would you tell somebody to, so what if I am asking you a bunch of questions and I'm
mhm.
genuinely interested, but I'm probably digging a little further than you're comfortable with me digging on a first date? How would you respond to somebody who's like, hey, tell me about, when'd you lose your virginity? Or
Right.
so you're kind of like,
Yeah.
what was his
Uh,
name? Where were you
ex-
guys?
yeah, no. No, there are some things that just aren't really appropriate that early on, right? People get to earn your story and your vulnerability. And there is such a thing, I believe, of someone asking just all the questions and not saying anything about themselves. That's a whole other thing. But if someone was asking me very slightly inappropriate or invasive questions like that, I would say, I'm not quite ready to talk about that yet. Thank you for your question, but I'm not quite ready to talk about that right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then I would probably change the subject.
Yeah. And that their response to that response probably tells you a lot as well.
Yes,
Do
for
they
sure.
receive that well? Do they respect that? Or, they get offended and
Yeah.
get upset. So, all
I'm
right.
real
So they,
careful. I don't want to shame anyone for I mean, unless it's just overtly inappropriate, but sometimes people can get carried away and just ask things that are a bit over the line. And I don't want to I don't want to shame them for it, but I also want to show them where my boundary is. That's really
yeah.
important. Show
Yeah.
people where your boundaries are.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. So they take genuine interest in you. That's a good sign to look for. I agree.
Yes. Okay. So the second one I think is hard for a lot of people sometimes until they start to sort of work with their dating goals and do some of their own inner work. But the second thing I have to say is you feel like yourself around them. So again, we're talking about a first date. It's normal to have first date jitters. It's normal to be, a little antsy, but we really we want to feel ultimately like we can relax around someone, that we're not like even noticing our body language and our posture and how we feel inside. Like, do we feel really like constricted and contracted and tight and nervous and, sweaty palms and fidgety under the table? Again, some nervous energy in the beginning is totally normal, but if you don't feel like you can really be yourself around them, you can't really say what's on your mind, have an open dialogue, feel confident in the things that you're sharing, then that's not always, that could be an indicator that it might not be the right person for you.
Is it something specific the person might not be doing or might be doing that makes a person feel like that? Or is it just kind of intuition at work and you just trust it?
Yeah. I think it's both. I think it's both. I mean, I think certain things that a person can do can fire off the intuition to say, like, oh, it's not safe to share here. It's not safe to be me here. It's not safe to be open here. Especially if, like the point you made a moment ago, if someone was asking me really like explicit or inappropriate questions, that's going to probably want to, shut me down a bit. Right.
Yeah.
But if there's a warmth there, if there's a genuineness there, if there's an ease there, I mean, I'm sure people listening or watching this, you've been on a date before where it's just like, this is so great. This is so fun. It's just kind of easy. And again, it doesn't have to be like the crazy wild chemistry feelings. It's more of just like, oh, I feel like I'm like just connecting with a good-hearted human in front of me. This feels good.
Yeah.
I just can be me around them. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I think those feelings when on dates are why I'm a big fan of you got a dating community. You
Yeah.
got to have a team of people because we need to evaluate and talk about these feelings. Like why when I was out with him did I have some of those feelings? Why did I feel triggered? Why did I feel uneasy? Why did just like I'm out on a date with somebody else? Why did I feel so free? Why did I share
Yeah.
with them stuff I don't normally share?
Mhm.
Why'd that person make me horny? Why'd this person not strike anything in me? So I think you've got to have a team of people that you debrief with after dates to kind of know
Yeah.
what is it. So I think that's a good one. Yeah.
That's really good. I kept a journal there for a while. I can't remember the name of it. I could try to find it if we want to link it at some point. But there was a journal that someone gave me, and I would make notes after every first date I had and how I felt and what I noticed and were there any big deal breakers. I just kind of took an inventory of what that first date was like, and it was so helpful to revert back to. I also wrote down what I wore so that if there was a second date, I didn't repeat myself. But that wasn't in the journal.
Right. No,
That's
that's
just me.
that's smart. That's smart. You think about I always think about that when, I'm doing something on video or,
Yeah.
it's gonna be recorded and you're like, oh dang, what I don't even know what I wore last time. I need a
Yeah.
journal for that.
That's worked for me. Okay. Next one is, and I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about this. And this one, it's a little maybe controversial. So I have down because I know we're talking about first date. It's that they can speak objectively about their past, their exes, or prior relationship that may or may not have ended, recently. Everybody says, don't talk about exes on a first date, never talk about that. I have a little bit of a different experience being a dating and relationship coach. We talk about that because it's part
Sure.
of my profession. So I think I've become a little more comfortable in sharing what I've learned from past partners. I'm not talking about like specific details about a relationship, but I have no problem talking about my past relationships. And I genuinely like it when someone can share with me what they learned about their past. Um, so, but can we each speak objectively about it, or are they talking really poorly about an ex, and you can see there's still a lot of like anger there, or frustration, or resentment there, or can they own their part in it? I always want to look for like where's my part in this, even in right like my unhealthiest relationships where it's so easy to point the blame at the other person. Okay, sure, but where do I get to take responsibility for my part? Because it took two people to create that relationship. So, what do
Yeah.
you think about that? Having any
Yeah.
sort
So
of talk of
one
that early?
one, I have no problem talking about past relationships,
Yeah,
people doing that on a first date.
yeah,
Because what's the big deal? I mean, we're here considering a relationship. So I think it's important to
yeah,
know, hey, I would think some of that would come up, right? If, if I met you on a dating app and we're out in public, it's like how long you've been on a dating app. If I just met you somewhere, tell me a little bit about your story. You want to know.
Yep.
So, yeah, no, I think objectively is the key. And, I would even say positively or avoid negativity, right? So
Yes.
if somebody, I don't know you, this is my first date with you, and I have no problem talking trash and bashing somebody I was in relationship with, that's a pretty good indication you're probably going to do that with me at some point if you don't like how this goes how this goes well, right? So
Yeah.
it would be a much better sign for me if the person I'm talking to, even if it was a terrible relationship, was like, I don't want to say a whole lot because I don't want to paint them in a
Yeah.
negative light, and you're only hearing my side of the story, and I know there's two sides to every story. So someone who can take that posture more than oh man, it was horrible, you wouldn't believe I'm like, so yeah, I think that's a good
Yeah.
sign.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. Okay, so my next one is painfully obvious. However, it's sometimes the one most frequently missed on first date. So that is you both have similar values. And I think a lot of us, including myself, when I was in my earlier stage dating, I didn't even know what my top values were. I had no
Yeah.
idea, like really what they were for me. And so how can I know what to look for? And if we even share that, if I don't even know what mine really are, because it's easy to say things like, "Oh yeah, well I want commitment and I want a family." Okay, shoot, what else beyond that? Like there is so much more.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So what do you have to say about that?
No, I think shared core values are probably top, maybe the most important thing. I think, chemistry and some feeling of compatibility, but I think values goes into that. Yeah, I think core values are huge. Every premarital couple I work with, we're going to talk about core values, making sure they're on
Mhm.
the same page with core values. I think because part of the deal is if we don't talk about those, we can feel like we maybe want the same things. So maybe I say it this way: the vision sets the destination, right? Like
Mm,
I have this vision for I want X family or something, but the values set the direction, like how we get there. And
yeah.
so maybe I'll say it another way. If the destination was we're going to India, all right, so we're in
Mhm.
agreement we're going to India, but how we get there may be vastly different between you and me. So it
Yeah.
could be like if I valued family and I've got some family in Japan, then I may leave from where I'm at and go via the Pacific because I want to stop and see them in Japan. If one of my values is finances and saving and being frugal, I'm probably going to take the cheapest way, and we got 15 layovers, and you might be like, nah, I'm doing one stop in first class. I don't care what it costs. So our values matter because we may think we're going the same place, but how we get there, what's important in the journey, and all that kind of stuff. And so if you
Mm,
don't have at least some of your top core values in agreement, you will fight because our core values
yes.
are always like when people who don't have core values, my way of determining them, I just say, look at your calendar and your checkbook.
Yeah.
Whatever you value is where you spend your time and money and energy. So, like when I say values, I'm thinking things that will impact those. So sometimes when people talk about values, they'll say honesty and compassion and kindness. I kind of call those virtues just
Mm,
because I think those are good. That's kind of the atmosphere we want, but those aren't like my wife and I value family. That's a core value. So
yes.
what that determines is we live in a different state than both our families. So for the last 20 years, every Christmas we have flown from
Yep.
Dallas, Texas to Oregon to be with her family. There's no argument. If I didn't
Yeah.
value family and she did, we'd fight every Christmas because I don't want to pay money and take time to go to Oregon where it's 42 and rainy when I can go an
Exactly.
hour the other way and be in the Caribbean, right? And so some of those core values will either eliminate conflict or cause conflict. So yeah, that's a long answer to
That's
I think they're important. I don't think they
Yeah,
all have to be the same. Like if you
yeah,
valued fitness and I necessarily didn't, and it wasn't a huge deal for our relationship, you weren't in the gym 10 hours a day and it wasn't impacting our relationship. You eat a little different than I do. I eat a little different. Maybe we can get away. So we can get away with some differences, but I think
yes.
the big one's got to be there. Yeah.
Totally. No, that's actually a perfect example. And that's the distinction, right? Like the big one, right? Like you can't necessarily have faith out of alignment or family out of
Sure.
alignment. Like those, because those are going to
Finances too.
really
I
impact
think how
things.
you
Yes.
view and manage it. I think those got to be if you if you're going to combine finances, which I think married couples should. So
Hmm.
yeah, core values I think is huge.
So based on your calendar and checkbook, so is shoes a core value? Because that might be one of mine.
It could, I mean, it could be fashion, how I
Yeah,
look,
yeah.
could
No,
be a
I'm
core value.
teasing.
Absolutely.
I just love my shoes. Okay, on to the next one for what to look for on the first date. There is a true desire and curiosity to know more about this person. Like, kind of, did they leave you kind of wanting more, wanting to know
Mm,
more? Now, there's a caveat to this too. And I'm not sure if I've talked about this before, but I have, I think, on a past episode. I went on a first date with someone once that I wasn't really feeling it totally. You know, the sparks weren't flying like I was used to.
sure.
And I was just sort of, it just felt kind of just mediocre. Great guy, but just wasn't sure. But there was this desire and curiosity to know more. Something about, I laughed a lot on the date.
Mm,
We had great conversation. There was just something I was like, it's not my typical type. However, there's something about this that I want to know more. And we ended up getting into a relationship. It didn't work out for other core value reasons, which is okay. He's still a fantastic close friend of mine, but it there it's so interesting to be able to follow that and notice if you have this curiosity to just want to know more. That's a great sign to look for on a first date.
yeah. No, I
Yeah.
think that is good. I don't think I have anything to add to that. I think that's,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be a good sign. Hey, you know what? I actually would like to see them again.
Yes, that's always good. We should do an episode, by the way. We should do an episode about what to look for like on the second date and third date because it's easy to narrow these down, I think, for a first date, but it might be cool to talk about that later.
Yeah.
Anyway, at some point. Okay, and then the last one I have is this one is so important and again is often overlooked. They are not into playing games. There was a time in my life where I loved the games. Some part of me loved waiting by the phone, looking at the screen, wondering if I was going to get that text message. Is he going to call me? Is he going to reach out? Is he going to ask me out again? Does he even like me? I got lost in that drama. And I'm so far beyond that now that is the actually the biggest turn off. And the thing that I love more than anything is that a man is direct with me. I know where he stands.
Hmm.
And I just don't think there's any reason to really sugarcoat this. And I know I'm talking to a man right now, so we can just see if you confirm this. But I believe if a man is interested in you, he will let it be known. You're not going to have a whole lot of guesswork. I think men that are serious, that know what they want or have a pretty darn good idea of what they want in the dating world are going to go for it. Are going to ask you out on a second date on the first one, or are going to ask you to, text them when you make it home safely, or are going to follow up and say I had a fantastic time with you, or when can I see you again? I I think that is so important to look for early on because that shows there's intention, there's direction, there's a desire for consistency coming from someone. And I just think that's really important to look for on a first date.
Yeah, I think the only exception would be, a guy who's insecure or fears
Sure.
rejection, who may be interested, but may also be fighting that, which may be a whole nother conversation to
I
have.
know, because I already
But
want to ask, how can women determine that and what can they do about that? But continue what you were going to say. We could do that
yeah,
later
I
too.
mean, I would think you'd probably see just in their temperament and mannerism, right? If you see a guy
Yeah,
who's highly confident and seems to, have no problem asking for what they want in every other area of their life and other stuff, who is confusing you, it's probably game playing. But
right.
if the guy is a little, more passive and seems to not want to push the envelope anywhere or stuff like that, then it, not knowing might feel. But then I think with a guy like that, you just ask, hey,
Yeah.
I mean, just again, this goes back to what you value is being honest. So if you are
Mhm.
confused by the signals somebody's given you, ask them.
Yep.
I'm confused by the signals. Part of me is like, oh, you seem like you want to do something again, and then I don't hear from you for 4 hours, which then makes me wonder, do you want to? So tell
Mhm.
me where you're at.
Yes.
You
I
know,
love the directness. As I speak about how women love that directness, we also, as women, get to be that as well. We get to show that directness. It's not all on the man. If
sure.
you are confused about it, there's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, I'm confused. I'd love to know what your thoughts are about getting together again." Or you said this and then this happened. What do you think? So I think
Yeah.
that's really important.
Unless they like the anxiety that you used to like of not knowing
Hmm.
and what, then it
Hmm.
builds, and the obsession and overthinking make us think we really are into them, and it's like, you're just anxious again. So
Yep. Yeah. And so many women say, I hate that. I hate that feeling. I hate feeling like that. Yet myself would keep getting in those situations. So some part of us, some part of me liked it. Some
yeah.
part of me, or it was just so familiar, I just defaulted to that pattern. But that's not, I don't think that's what any of us really want deep down. Not if we're looking for a deep, committed, loving partnership. That's
No,
not really what we
I
want.
kind of like peace in my life.
Yes,
I don't,
yes.
yeah, I don't like a whole lot of extra stuff that's going to produce anxiety for
No,
me.
me either. Not anymore. Not anymore.
So
Yeah.
here's a couple more thoughts I had. One would just be on a first date. I would want to be looking for somebody who doesn't. This kind of goes back to the first one about asking about you, who doesn't overshare but also doesn't undershare, right? And partly I'm making the assumption, if I'm healthy in these areas, then that person should probably, we should mirror each other and match each other, right? If I'm sharing to this level and then you're going way over the top, and I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
that's more than I want to process, or I'm sharing at this level and you're giving me nothing back. I think somebody who undershares or overshares would be a little iffy to me. So if they don't do that and they kind of mirror me, I think that would be, at least to me, that would say this person has some emotional, relational intelligence, and
Yeah.
that would be good for me.
Yes. Yeah. That's really, really good. And it's key to look for. It's and I we're not sharing these things obviously to just have like, oh, I got to look for this, and did he do this right? Did he ask me enough questions? And did he bring this up? And it's not about that. We're sharing this just to give you a framework, right? Just to give you some indicators, some things to just be open to and look for on a first date. If I could wrap it all up into one thing, it would be, how do you feel on your date? Like, how do you really feel? Do you feel anxious and nervous the entire time? Do you feel mostly at peace? Did you have fun? Are you enjoying yourself? It's just like check in with how you actually feel. How does being in this person's company make you feel overall? And just kind of do a baseline check of that and ask
I,
yourself if you
I
want to go out
would,
again.
let me throw one more on top of that. I'm probably a little bit of pushback on anytime I hear something like that, like how do you feel? There's
Hmm.
always this little part of me inside that's like, but
Push
yes, our
back.
feelings are important, but I'm a big proponent. Let's date with our head and our heart. So our feelings
Mhm.
matter, how we're experiencing is great, but let's also be aware of and look for things that matter in life. So I would throw on top of that not only how you feel, but how do they treat the other people you come in contact with throughout the date. So I don't care if it's
Mhm.
like, I just want to see because how people handle people, period, is important to me. And so it could be as small as the valet person. If you stop at a restaurant and,
Mhm.
does he seem to be nice to him? Hey man, keys in here, appreciate you. Or is it kind of like, you're nobody, I don't know you a whole lot. I'm not even kind of making eye contact with you. Same thing with a waiter or waitress if we're out to eat. How are they treating them? I just want to kind of observe across the board. Certainly, if you're in a car together driving, how do they manage traffic or other idiots on the road? I just think you
Hmm.
learn a lot. And so I'm like, don't just it's pay attention to how you feel with them, but I'm like also pay attention to how other people who have to interact with them
Yeah,
might be experiencing this person as well.
that's a great, and yes, great distinction. Yes, 100%. Love it.
Cool.
That's all I
Well,
got.
I think those are some good signs. Hopefully that can help some people who get on a first date and leave the first date. And again, I think what you said is not. Don't go in there with like, okay, what were the 5 things? Five, I gotta
Yeah.
remember. Um, but I think if there's some awareness of what you're looking for, then after that you experience the date, when you're kind of debriefing either in a journal like you do, or with somebody else, a friend, I think you will remember and notice more things because you went in kind of watching for those things. So
Yep. Yep. Good stuff.
awesome. That's
Love
all
it.
we got for this one. Hopefully that was helpful to you. If you have not downloaded any of the free resources, again, check out the show notes description area, and we will see you back here next time.